Can't wait to get content ID'd for all the long music I'm gonna have to play in this video. Hello everyone, Flux here, aka 1 in a Million, and I'd like to welcome you to a new series I'm starting called Run It Back, where I catch up on decades worth of music and barf it all out for your entertainment. I've always been late listening to new releases for artists, both singles and albums. In addition to that, I've also had a bunch of rappers and singers who I just call my favorite because they've either dropped a couple hot singles, an okayish album years ago, or just because I've grown up listening to them my entire life. But would I still hold those same musicians in high regard after listening to their entire catalog? That's the question we want to answer today, so I made this series in order for us to take an artist, shake them of their entire discography and review it one project at a time to see where their creativity peaks and drops respectively. And the first artist I wanted to choose was Rex Orange County, UK singer-songwriter and crowning champion of the sad boy aesthetic. To prepare for this video, I listened to Because You'll Never Be Free, Apricot Princess, Pony, and Who Cares? Will his emotional and moody songs make a lasting impression, or will they just break down into being mediocre? There's only one way to find out. Let's run it back.
This is the only thing I love doing, so like, why wouldn't I make this my whole life?
Rex initially started making music by himself in his bedroom. No big studio, no professional equipment, just a boy, a keyboard, and Logic on a Mac. His first project came about when he was a bored 16-year-old just making songs out of the comfort in his room, and in the friendliest way possible. That's super apparent in his lyrics. Separating the fact that Because is a mixtape about identity and love, something that we teens are famously known for dramatizing, Rex often adds random lyrics or sings with a level of immaturity and odd bluntness that overrides his pretty expressive and genuinely good vocals. There's a lot of spoken word, almost poem-esque verses on his breakout tape detailing Rex's feelings about not being enough, regretting being in a higher position than others, worrying about how others may see his intentions, hating the sound of his own voice, you know, typical teen stuff. It can be pretty hit or miss, especially when Rex interrupts the natural flow of a track to jam in a poem that make the music feel more like a monologue over a drum beat rather than a song that you can actually come back to. One moment he's talking about how his love interest made him lose parts of himself, and he cautions the listener not to let the same happen. And in the next he's talking about how he doesn't want the same girl calling him daddy because that's fucking weird. I mean, it is 16-year-old boy, I just can't help but feel like that was kinda out of place. Another odd moment is the song Green Eyes Part 2, a track about the evils of money and another side tanging about him trying to court a girl. It's 3 minutes of Rex speaking over a minimalistic instrumental that doesn't have any replayability. The only saving grace of Because lies in Rex's raw yet somber melodies that carry most of the project on their own. Tracks like No Love and Corduroy Dream showcase his natural gift for carrying a decent melody. Another pro I can give the project is despite its bedroom lo-fi and low-budget aesthetic, it sounds pretty decently polished. You can obviously hear influence from people like Frank Ocean and early Stevie Wonder, both of which Rex has cited as early inspirations for his music. And his songwriting at this point isn't especially diverse to make him stand out against a Tyler the Creator or a Bruno Mars type, but Because would end up being a blueprint of things to come shortly because Rex's emotional depth and maturity would come full front with his next LP. For now, Rex's unfiltered attempt to vent his teenage frustrations only resulted in a mediocre at best mixtape with tons of room for improvement. Giving Because You Will Never Be Free a 4.5 out of 10. Here's my tracklist ranking. What's next?
That's probably the most important part, to feel love and to be loved back.
Sometime after dropping his first project and getting underground success, O'Connor caught the attention of fellow UK artist 2-Inch Punch and secured himself a management team. Also around this time, he got scoped out by, you guessed it, Tyler the Creator, who liked Rex's sound and flew him out to LA to help him work on singles for his upcoming album, Flower Boy. He even managed to get a girlfriend, which is funny when you think about how much he down-talked the idea of being in love in the first place. Nonetheless, 2016 to 2017 was a very prolific year for Rex. Whether it was due to finally finding love, seeing his first hints of success, being recognized by a significant talent, or even just as a result of maturing with age, Rex's music started sounding a lot more poppier and upbeat. Not to say he no longer sounded like himself or went too far out of his comfort zone, but singles like Best Friend and Sunflower were filled with so much more heart-wrenching emotion than pretty much every track on his previous mixtape. After the 2 aforementioned singles plus another, Rex finally dropped another project in the form of Apricot Princess. And oh my god, the improvement is spectacular. Rex's brooding mood and overall cynical nature are washed away by bright, simmering synth chords and happy-go-lucky guitars fresh out the box. Right from the title track opener, you can already notice that Rex is no longer the sad sack you need to feel bad for. In a beautifully produced 3-act performance intro, he gives his evolution as both an artist and a lyricist. He went from, you think I'll say I love you when I really fucking don't, to, you can never do wrong, it's me that makes the evening long. From, I heard you've been away to discover yourself or something, but was it worth it when you stole his heart, to, I'm ashamed of the way I've appeared, but I promise I'm not gonna let you down. He's whittled away so much of the I'm upset so it's not my fault mentality and has passively given himself up, all in the name of love. The entire album was written about his at-the-time girlfriend, who features on Sycamore Girl, one of my favorite tracks. There's also the track Never Enough, a clear standout that mimics the same high-stakes performance that his popular singles had. Despite all the mentions of more soft attitudes using soft rock and bedroom pop, Rex still manages to keep his lo-fi and jazz roots connected on Apricot as well, delivering a couple down-tempo ballads about coping with a past relationship, hoping he still shares connections with his loved ones at an old age, even brutal regret of past actions and immense sadness. His versatility to switch between the two is seemingly effortless. Now, by no means is this a perfect album. If you're more of a stickler for experimentation or you want super duper immersive lyrics, then you might judge Apricot Princess a bit more harshly than I am. But hey, sometimes simplicity can be just as good as complexity in music, and Rex's new leaf has made him sound like a better artist all around. Honestly, it's contender for one of the best albums of 2017, but I can understand why it went under a lot of people's radar. There was a lot of good music dropping that year. All I'll leave you with is what O'Connor had to say about Apricot Princess himself. Apricot Princess is like an inside album. You can listen to the album and feel all of those emotions within one night. It can be happy and dancey, and then you think of something you fucked up on. Then you're upset and regret something, and then you remember that there are other things in your life to reflect on them. That's Never Enough and Waiting Room. But Sycamore Girl, Apricot Princess, and Television as the happier moments. It's like a big party where everything is super positive, but at the same time you're going through all these emotions. And he couldn't have explained it any better. Giving AP a very proud 10 out of 10. Here's the tracklist ranking. What's next?
The stage. It's here.
Another 2-year gap filled with a loose string of singles later, and we're up to Rex's third project, which is also his first major label project with RCA. And right off the bat, that gave me fears about how this album was going to sound. Record labels have a big reputation for watering down an artist's potential just to make them appeal to a wider audience. I mean, it makes sense, they have a bottom line and more fans means more money. But in milking their signee for all the cash they're worth, they sacrifice that musician's artistic integrity. And I can't help but feel like they overloaded the project a bit. Before I rag on it too hard, I would like to say that writing-wise, Pony is probably lyrically the strongest of his 4 projects. And despite him sounding painfully boyish and almost childish on a lot of tracks, his writing presents him as the most mature he's ever been. But the production on this album just feels so typical after hearing how off-the-wall Apricot Princess was. And speaking of how Rex sounds, Pony takes his raw authenticity and replaces it with overblown synths and a ridiculous amount of vocal processing. The singing that made you want to feel for Rex prior now sounds pitchy, forced, even off-key at times. Aside from some standout tracks that try to roll with a new electronic sound and some tracks that try to recapture the orchestral feel of AP, Pony sounds like coffee shop music. I've come around to this album after a ton of re-listens, but even the best tracks on Pony don't feel like his best to me. There's still the emotionally moving songs like Pluto Projector and Always, the fun sounding and upbeat songs like 10 out of 10 and Face to Face, but the thrill I get from these tracks feels super soaked. Maybe if this project came before Apricot, then I have a bit of a more appreciation for it because I'm not really sure it's fair to keep comparing the two. And if you guys think I'm not giving Pony enough credit, then please tell me in the comments because I'm not sure what I'm missing here. But as it stands, I don't know, I just thought it was pretty underwhelming. Giving Pony a not angry, just confused 6 out of 10. Here's the tracklist ranking. What's next?
Yeah, I was very asleep at that point, but they were outside. So shout out to them, love to the fans. That's amazing.
After Pony's mixed bag, I was a little worried about where he'd move next. So when he dropped his first new single in 2 years after a deathly silence, for reasons we should all know of, I was a little skeptical at first. It reminded me of one of Rex's songs from 2017, Lovin' Is Easy. The comparison wasn't surprising since they share the same co-producer, Benny Sings. I liked the song, it was pretty soft with its flourishing violins and piano chords and felt like a return to format. It was a simple, uplifting song, but I came back to it a lot more than I thought I would. Then he dropped his following single, Amazing, which sounded good, but exactly the same. The last single with Tyler lifted my hopes a bit, but the overall sound of the 3 tracks stayed pretty much within the same instrumental patterns. And it makes sense conceptually. Rex, after all the emotional stress in his songs, has just become numb to it all. And the production on Who Cares isn't lazy. In fact, I'd say the first half is actually pretty strong. The retro feel of If You Want It, the amazingly lush 1 in a Million, and again, the very charismatic Tyler verse on Open the Window. Combine that with Rex's usual sad boy lyrics but happy sounding beats and you got a recipe for success. But as we get further down the track list, the mellow beats sort of start to get worn out. There's only so many times you can use the same template and get different results. While I like how sweet it is, the track Making Time sounds more like an interlude than a whole track. Most of the lyrics are just making time, and the audio mixing makes it sound like he's being played through a ham radio. Worth It is a beautiful track about trying to move past his prior relationship with his at-the-time girlfriend. See how I wrap that around? It all comes full circle. But despite how much I enjoy the very regal opening, the track takes a long time to set up with a pretty short payoff. Now, I don't hate or dislike any songs on Who Cares. At the end of the day, it's a very likable project, but that comes at the cost of not taking any risks. There's no real cinematic or even dramatic track on the album. The closest we get is Shoot Me Down, which aside from some beautiful violin and piano accompaniment proves to be just as low-key as prior tunes. And the closing track, Who Cares, is the most laid back we've seen Rex in recent history, throwing his feelings to the wind and asking, well, who cares? What's the point of it all? But I think this project is a breath of fresh air for Rex, aside from some monotony in the track list. It's close enough to his Bcos and AP era music, but separate enough to feel like he's not just copying his old music for new praise. It's just good. And hey, isn't that good enough? Giving Who Cares a 7 out of 10. Here's the track list ranking. What's next? Before I get on with my closing thoughts and end this video, I just have one more segment I gotta add. Just let me get in the right position for it. And here we are. What's up? Still Flux here, and welcome to the Singles Corner, where we talk about, you guessed it, singles that didn't make it on the albums and mixtapes that I think you guys will like from the artist if you enjoyed what's on their albums. So, Rex actually doesn't have that many singles. In fact, most of his discography is albums, but he still had a couple singles that I think you guys would like. So, let's talk about them. I spoke a bit about these songs. I'm sure everybody who's watching this video has heard these solo tracks, but if you haven't, they're a great place to start. Probably his most energetic and emotional songs to date. If you enjoyed Who Cares, then you'll definitely enjoy this song. It's almost like a template for the songs in that album. I feel like it's a bit more original since, you know, it did come out first, but if you like Who Cares, then this is definitely up your alley. I didn't mean to hurt you, I'm sorry. Now this one isn't technically a single. In fact, some people would call it an album, because it is. I didn't talk about this one since, you know, it's just a recorded performance of his 2020 live show, but some of the performances do hit pretty hard. I would definitely recommend his Untitled performance and his Sunflower performance are really good. I know they're just live covers, but if you're curious, then, you know, I would check them out. And that's all from the Singles Corner. Now we can finish this video.
And doot doot.
I think Rex is still relatively fresh in his career, even though he started way back in 2015. His last project was an improvement for sure, but again, I just don't feel like it was his best. I don't want to say that he's peaked 5 years ago either, because even though he's made songs since Apricot that I do love, I think that's the only album of his that's truly complete. That being said, he's still a pretty solid artist. He's somewhere I'd give him like, I don't know, like a B-. If you want to get into his music, I recommend that you start from the beginning. Apricot Princess is definitely a highlight, but I feel like you'll enjoy it a lot more if you listen to Bcos, because the evolution from mixtape to album is very impressive. His entire album run is an experience, but definitely check out AP. I've already given the scores, so you know how I rank them from worst to best. I'll put it on screen here just in case we need to visualize it. But as far as my favorite songs go from Rex, in no particular order, I guess Apricot Princess, No Love, Sycamore Girl, Never Enough, Best Friend, It Gets Better, 10 out of 10, 1 in a Million, Loving Is Easy, and Sunflower. Were your rankings the same as mine? Do you guys agree with my list? Do you think it's dumb? Let me know how you guys feel in the comments. Definitely give me suggestions about artists who you guys think I should do next. I've got a couple on my list. I'm working on Amine right now. It might change. I think he's still touring, so I don't think he's dropping an album soon, but that might change. I haven't checked in a while, but hey, we just gotta see how it goes. So if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I don't think I have anything else to say. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.